Hey guys, how you doing? I'm David Mathas. Thank you guys for tuning into my channel. I really appreciate the support. If you guys have enjoyed the content you've seen so far, please like, subscribe, and share. It would mean a lot to me. But let's dive into today's topic, okay? Today's topic is all about maximal systemic recovery workload. That's a mouthful, isn't it? Well, let's think about what that really means, right? You hear a lot of people talk about how you need to equate for volume, right, when it comes to recovery. But I think you need to take it a step further. Actually, Dr. Mike Israetel, someone that I really respect in the industry, I think he puts out great information. He's talked about this concept of MRV, maximal recovery volume. And I agree with a lot of the points he makes in his argument about how MRV needs to be a factor into your training. But I think it needs to go a little bit step further. I think it needs to talk about workload. Now, what is maximal systemic recovery workload? What this is equating your sets, your reps, and your weight, the load that you use, right? Now, volume has this definition of sets times reps, which is what a lot of people get hung up on. My issue with using volume is how intense are those sets, right? How intense are those reps? How many are you getting? Are you actually taking your muscle to near failure, providing enough mechanical tension to make a difference? If you're not, then you can do tons of volume for days and not have any negative effects or positive effects for that matter. I think you need to take into account the maximal systemic recovery workload. Now, when you work a muscle, say you're working legs, right? You are providing that with a lot of stimulus. You are systemically fatiguing yourself from that workout. And that will carry over to other body parts when you try to work that, right? Have you ever tried to have a hard leg day and then you wake up the next day and you're just drained? Right? Systemically, it took a lot out of you. It used a lot of your different energy systems to push through that leg training day. So maybe you try to hit chest the next day. Although you might have a good chest workout, you're probably not at full systemic strength because of that training session. Well, this is where I think the MSRW, maximal systemic recovery workload, needs to come into effect, right? Because say you're just using volume, right, to figure out if you're working enough, if you're recovering enough. Well, that's not taking into account how hard you were actually pushing during that set, during that training session, right? Because it's only accounting for sets times reps. Now, a lot of people will interchange these two, right? And they'll talk about how volume is sets times reps times work times weight, right? I think that's wrong. I think that people are using that, and I don't want to say it's the lazy way to use it, but it's not being defined the right way. Workload is what you need to pay attention to, because you can do 2 or 3 hard sets with heavy weight, and that could play more of a factor on your systemic system than if you did 10 sets with a lighter weight. So that's what's going to affect your recovery more. That's why paying attention to your overall systemic workload is going to be crucial to progressing in the gym, feeling better, have more energy, and being more efficient in achieving the goals that you're trying to achieve, right? So how do we do this? Well, we need to factor in what we know already that we can recover from, and it's going to take a little bit of experimentation on our part. This is where having a coach can be great. There's a lot of great benefits of having a coach. There's a lot of great feedbacks. I'm a coach. I love when people tell me about like how they're feeling in their sets and everything, but you need to keep track for yourself too, right? You need to have your own logbook going. You can't rely on a coach to know exactly what your systemic recovery workload is, because they are not inside you, right? They are not feeling what you're feeling. They don't know unless you tell them how you're sleeping, how you're eating, your hydration, your energy levels. All that stuff needs to be relayed to a coach in order for them to better, help you out. And any coach worth any merit is going to ask you about that stuff. But you also need to keep track of this. You need to understand that if you do 4 sets of squats, right, how is that going to make you feel? How long is it going to take you to recover in a few days to be able to hit that again? Because that is what the main goal is, right? For hypertrophy, for strength, is you want to hit that stimulus as often as you possibly can. But you want to do so when you are at your freshest so that you don't systemically overload yourself and fatigue yourself and then start losing strength, not being able to train, getting injured, getting sick, things like that. So this is where you need to take an active role in understanding and keeping notes on how your body is adjusting to each workout. If you hit 4 sets of squats, let's say, and then you feel again like 2 days later you can hit it again, well, that's probably a pretty good workload for you. But is that your maximal, right? It's experimentation, guys. You need to start small and work yourself up. You can't start big. You can't start with German volume training in 10 sets of 10 and be able to expect to find that you're going to recover well, right? You don't know what your true range is. Start small. I almost always start all my clients off with just 3 sets of an exercise. And then we progress. We progressively overload from there, whether it's adding sets, adding reps, adding weight. There's many different ways that you can progressively overload, which I'll do another video on about that. But getting back to the maximal systemic recovery workload, you need to know that not every body part is going to be able to withstand the same amount of volume and workload. You're probably going to be able to hit things like your biceps and your triceps a lot more frequently than you would be able to hit, say, your legs or your chest. The reason being is you're not able to use as much load and intensity when lifting using working those body parts, right? You can lift a lot more when you're squatting or when you're bench pressing than you can when you're bicep curling or tricep pushdowns, right? So take that into account too, that not everything is going to be even. You can't always do 4 sets on everything. Some things are going to need maybe 6 sets. Maybe your biceps and triceps are going to need a little bit more. Maybe your quads, maybe your chest, maybe your back is going to need a little bit less depending on what intensity that you're working at. And always remember, focus on mechanical tension, okay? Volume is great for hypertrophy, but not as much as mechanical tension. You can get away with doing a lot less volume if you are providing your muscles with enough stimulus for growth. So that's all going to play a factor in maximal systemic recovery workload. Understand how many sessions during the week you're going to be able to train. Maybe 4 days a week is going to be your maximal recovery, right? Maybe if you go 5, you're not going to be able to recover enough. Maybe it's 3, maybe it's 6. Everybody is individual. You can't blanket everybody into a certain range. 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, 3 sets, 4 sets, 5 sets. You can't do that. You have to take an active approach to your own fitness, to your own recovery. Keep notes. When you do 4 or 5 sets, how do you feel after that? How do you feel the next day? How do you feel 2 days later? It's a process, guys. Like I said before, start slow so that you have room to build up. It's a lot easier to build up than it is to come back down, right? From both a physical and a mental standpoint. Sometimes when you start really high and you have to drop that down, you tend to sometimes think that you're not actually working hard enough, and that's not always the case, right? So keep in mind maximal systemic recovery workload when you're either programming, you're training for yourself, or you're working with a coach and they are doing your programming. They need to know this. They need to know how you're feeling on a weekly basis and give it time. Be patient. Things like this are going to take maybe a month, maybe 2 months to figure out. And also realize that this is going to change over time. This is going to change as you get older. This is going to change with your nutrition. This is going to change with your sleep and your recovery. This is also going to change with outside factors, your work, your relationships, your stress levels, maybe how much you're going out partying and drinking, things like that. Our body works as a whole, right? We are one system. So when we fatigue one area, it doesn't mean that the other areas are not getting fatigued as well, right? Fatiguing your legs, being overly stressed, not sleeping, things like that, not hydrating, not having proper nutrition, might affect how you work your chest the next day, right? Might affect how you work your back. All these things can limit your progress if you aren't keeping a careful eye on maximal systemic recovery workload. So if you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. You can find me at mathasfitness on Instagram, mathasfitness@gmail.com for coaching inquiries. And if you guys have any comments, anything like this regarding the topic of maximal systemic recovery workload, please leave them in the comment section below. I love reading your guys' comments, and I think maybe we can all help each other out a little bit with this. So thank you guys again for tuning in. I really appreciate it. I'll be back with some more content soon. Thank you.